Abraham, I have to start out by thanking you so much for asking it is given. I always imagine that it should be hovering on my stack of books because I really don't think of it as a book. It's just like a power source. So thank you very much.
Well, you all are asking.
Yeah.
That's how that book comes about. Yes.
Yeah, incredible gift. In you talking about, and I love your analogy of going from Phoenix to Yuma, trying to get to San Diego and turning around going back to Phoenix. I think of us leaving Source originally, and in a way, it's like that's what we're doing. Why do we leave to embody a physical, a material existence when we come from all that is, and we're in vibrational harmony with that on whatever level of existence that is. And
well,
then
that's the key, isn't it? In other words, it's hard to, from your physical perspective, understand anything other than what is physical. But we're going to offer some words here to try to help you to understand that everything that you see as physical reality is nothing more than vibration that is being interpreted into a physical reality. So there is really not much difference between non-physical and physical, because everything that we are in non-physical, we can experience as you do in your physical format. It's just vibrational interpretation. Esther noticed as she visited with her father after he made his transition from his physical form back into non-physical form, his description of what he was doing and his life experience let Esther understand that he was still interpreting his life through the format that she understands here in the physical form. In other words, he was joyful and he was having lovely experiences, but he was describing places, not non-places. He was describing people and faces, not energy. He was describing things in a similar way that he would have been describing if he had been sitting across the room from Esther. And it made Esther realize that wherever you are having an experience that must be understood through some framework. And whatever framework it is you are understanding it through is the reality that you are living. So in our effort to help you to understand the differences between the physical life that you live, which you understand pretty well, and the non-physical part of you, it's very difficult to even make that distinction without causing some sort of separation or distortion in your minds.
Do you have laws, do you have like spiritual laws at that level that are like our laws here of manifestation and allowing, and also like our physical laws of whatever, gravity, thermodynamics? I mean,
well, there are definitely vibrational universal laws, not gravity in the sense that we are on a sphere as you are, but certainly the universal laws such as law of attraction. But most of what you mean as laws are means to control one another, and most laws are orchestrated or written from the perspective of disconnection, from the non-physical point of view that we hold, where we know our power and we understand not only our own power but the power of everyone else. There is no desire or attempt at controlling one another. We trust law of attraction to do all of that.
Yeah, I wasn't really talking about, I'm just trying to get a sense of your plane.
Well, the best way to get a sense of what it's like for us is to get joyful and let us flow through you. That really is what we're trying to say to you. We are not separate from you unless you're an ornery toad. In other words, in your orneriness, you separate yourself from us, but we are not separate from you. In your unhappiness, you separate yourself from us, but we are not separate from you. And so everything that you would consider to be the best of life, we're right there. Yeah, everything is perceptual. There is no reality other than that which is perceptual. That is the most powerful thing that we want you to hear. We're looking at you to make sure you write that down. There is no reality other than what is perceived. And the reality that is perceived has to be tinged, if you will, by the perceiver that is perceiving them. And so the non-physical part of you is a joyful, expansive, open, free-flying, loving, knowing, secure, understanding own worthiness being. And when you're looking through those eyes, it's a bright, beautiful world. When you look through the eyes of inferiority, you see a different world. When you look through the eyes of powerlessness or loss of freedom, you see a very different world. But all of that is self-imposed as human looks. Jerry and Esther are at a park with their monster bus, and Jerry pointed out to Esther that there was a very large, very lovely cat on a leash. And as soon as Esther realized it was on a leash, she said, "Oh, I think in the night I will set it free." And Jerry said, "It's probably not out there in the night for you to set it free." And then Esther thought about how she would feel if she had a very lovely cat that she was trying to keep in her own life and someone set it free. And of course she was not really planning on setting it free, but she just longed for it to be set free. And then she watched the cat, and the cat was really not yanking at the end of its chain as Esther would have if she were the cat chained. The cat seemed to understand its limits and would run very, very fast, almost to the end of its chain, and it would stop and look around as if to say to Esther and Jerry, "I know how long this rope is." And we want to say to Esther that the cat certainly has the potential of making itself miserable at the end of this chain, but it is not making itself miserable. In other words, Esther is superimposing how she would feel if she were on a leash over how the cat feels. And the cat feels differently on the leash than Esther would feel on the leash. It's just not possible to step into someone else's perspective and understand it. And that's the trouble with trying to understand what is non-physical through your physical eyes. There just aren't enough words. And it seems that every word we offer conjures some sort of picture that causes human to make an even greater distortion of their understanding than was there before.
I get that. Yeah.
So try to feel what your inner being feels like. That is the truest sense of what non-physical is like. Non-physical is clearly an experience, and it is absolutely a feeling. And it feels like expansion and freedom and love and joy. And it is an extremely interesting experience. But you cannot accurately, and here is the answer to the question that we know you're asking, you cannot accurately define what it's like to be non-physical unless you are including the physical in the explanation. Because we see through your eyes, we smell through your nose, we experience through you. You are the leading edge of that which we are, you see.
How does the manifestation and creation of all of, what you could call small wants, like material this and that, or a bigger material this and that, how is that leading edge? How does that advance all that is by us attaining these small things on a material level?
Well, first we would say that we do not see anything as small, because everything...
I knew you'd say that.
We knew you knew. Everything is incremental. Everything is. Everything is incremental. Nothing is other than incremental, because everything is moving from the point that it is, and nothing can move from a point that it isn't. So everything is incremental. The small things, the material things, are not the main event. It is the exposure to experience and the subsequent improvement in experience. The things are just the staging or the enhancement of the experience, and they are representative of the vibration. But it is the experience that life is really all about.
Thank you. I know you know me, and I've wanted to get to know you better. Thus, my questions.
You cannot know us apart from yourself.
Yeah.
We are the greatest joy that you know. We are the greatest clarity that you feel. We are the feeling of vitality and balance. We are the feeling of expansion. In other words, you know us through your emotional center. And that is the only way that anyone can know anyone or anything, isn't it?
Yes.
You know the absence of us, that's too strong a word. You know when we are fully within you. You know when you are vibrationally different from us. You feel the warmth of us. You feel the closeness of us or the absence of us. Let it be the feeling experience that it is meant to be. That's why your emotions guide you, not your thoughts, not your brain, not some meter. Your emotions.
Well, that actually leads to my personal question, which is 2.5 years ago, I put everything in storage, sold my home. I've been renting space in a friend's home to minimize my monthly expenditures so I could recreate my life to become more of the solution rather than the problem as I saw it in working in corporate America. And not so much that, not so much on the negative side, but just to live what's in here that wants out, so to speak. And I've always felt in my gut, I've always felt guidance, and I feel it very much on a personal level and a spiritual level. But in terms of my path forward, I'm no clearer today than I was 2.5 years ago.
Well, that's because you're trying to run away and join the circus rather than change the vibration within you, which allows you to perceive your world in a clearer way. We have a question or two just to sort of get things into an easier to begin place, and then we'll proceed as far as you want to go with this. Now, you've got the sense of what we're talking about that which is physical being the leading edge of that which is non-physical. So, do you think that there are any inner beings involved in what you call corporate America?
Yes, of course.
Of course. In other words, it's illogical to think that anything could be happening without the support and sustenance and flowing of source energy. So, it may be that in the way you are seeing corporate America, that the leading edge extensions of this non-physical energy might be co-creating with one another in a way that they've pinched themselves off and are not personally allowing themselves to be consciously connected with source energy.
Yes.
But it isn't the endeavor or the activity or the place or the action. It's not that action journey, it's the emotional journey that you're having right along with it. We see some of the most fulfilling, exciting beings on your planet right smack dab in the middle of corporate America. In other words, their juices are really flowing. There's a lot being called through them. In other words, you could be in any phase of life or in any avocation, and you can be open and allowing who you are to flow through you, or you could have it pinched off. And we really do not think that the place that you are standing has anything to do with whether you're pinched off or not. We think it's your attitudinal response to it. But your questions are
You're
good
exactly
ones.
Right.
They come back from the standpoint that so many people are feeling, and we certainly understand it. If you are standing in your body and you look over here and you see something that makes you feel good, or you're standing over here and you look over here and you see something that makes you feel bad, we understand how you would vote for more of the good feeling things and you would vote for fewer of the not good feeling things, and we can understand how over time you become an individual or a civilization or a mass consciousness that believes that is the controlling of circumstances that are necessary in order to live good lives. And it is from that framework that you come up with a statement such as, I can't be happy in corporate America, I need to separate myself from that and go someplace else into some other phase of life, only to discover as you did that you took yourself with you, and it didn't get any clearer anywhere else, because it wasn't about the outside trappings, it was about the inner observing of them and vibrational responses. So that's sometimes people will describe a very unpleasant environment, and they will prod us to try to get the words out of us that give them permission while they need no one's permission to leave that. They'll say, shouldn't I leave this job? Or shouldn't I leave this mate? Shouldn't I leave this house? And we always say, perhaps, in other words, that whether they stay or go is really not the issue. But we always say, you will be taking yourself with you.